Nate B. It's too soon.
Well, we'll let your father decide.
Now, wait a minute, Nate B. Let's talk this thing over.
No, we won't. We'll talk with your father.
Now, what are you all arguing about?
What if the most peaceful town in television history was actually hiding secrets from backstage violence to hidden medical crises and ruthless studio politics? We all trusted Mayberry to be our ultimate escape, but behind the camera were shocking revelations network executives spent millions to bury. What were they so terrified you would find out? Let us unmask the 20 wildest secrets they hid from viewers. The success it carried. To understand how incredible these hidden secrets really are, you have to look at the massive wave of success that carried this show into millions of living rooms every single week. When it debuted in the fall of 1960, nobody could have predicted that a simple story about a small-town sheriff with a southern drawl would turn into a national obsession. The show became an instant powerhouse for the CBS network, capturing a massive audience that spanned from small country towns to the biggest cities in America. For 8 straight years, the series stayed firmly locked in the top 10 of the national ratings, creating a cultural phenomenon that practically stopped the clock whenever a new episode aired. With an unforgettable cast consisting of Andy Griffith, Sheriff Andy Taylor, and Don Knotts, you just know the comedy was top-notch. But even with a legacy this bright and a cast this beloved, the pristine surface of America's favorite small town was hiding a completely different reality behind the scenes. It turns out that creating the ultimate image of small-town perfection required some of the most surprising secrets in Hollywood history. Let us dive right into things that happened behind the scenes. We kick off our countdown at number 20 with a bizarre piece of Mayberry history that completely vanished into thin air. Number 20. The Case of Cousin Barney. If you pop in a video of the very first episode from 1960, you will notice something incredibly strange about how Andy and Barney related to each other. In the episode, Barney straight up calls the sheriff Cousin Andy, and Andy calls him Cousin Barney right back. This alone changes everything you thought you knew about their relationship. The show's creators intentionally started things off this way for a specific reason. They were worried that audiences would never believe a sharp sheriff would hire such a nervous, clumsy deputy unless his hands were tied by family loyalty. It was the only reason Barney was able to get a badge in the first place. As the actors spent more time on the Hollywood set, Andy Griffith and Don Knotts' comedic timing turned into pure gold. Just like that, audio logs show that backstage crew members actively went through mid-season scripts and scrubbed away any mention of the family connection to reset the timeline. Instead of being cousins, they became childhood best friends who grew up together on the streets of Mayberry. This simple tweak was a massive win for the show's comedy. For years, people who watched the premiere debated whether they actually heard Barney say it or if they imagined the whole thing. The early episode footage proves it was true, even if the network wanted everyone to forget. While the writers were busy altering family trees, an entirely different kind of illusion behind the scenes was required just to get the show's legendary opening credits sequence on film. Number 19. Ron Howard's opening rock. There's no one who can't say they don't remember the scene of Andy and little Opie walking down a dirt road with their fishing poles while that catchy theme song plays in the background. If you remember correctly, their walk builds up to a moment where Opie throws a rock far out into what seems like a peaceful lake. But the real story was that the filming location was anything but peaceful. When the crew went out to Franklin Canyon Park in Los Angeles to shoot this quick intro, they hit a major problem. Ron Howard was only 6 years old at the time, and he just didn't have the arm strength or the physical coordination to get that heavy stone all the way to the water. Time was running out, and the cost of keeping the production crew on location was starting to add up. To save the scene, the assistant director had to sneak into the bushes right by the edge of the water, completely out of sight from the camera lens, holding a pile of matching rocks. The crew set up a clever timed double throw, and when the director gave the signal, Ron Howard threw his rock into the dirt close by. At that exact moment, The crew member hiding in the bushes also launched his own rock high into the air so it would land right in the middle of the lake. They timed the switch so the audience would watch Ron's arm move and instantly see the big splash out in the deep water. This clever little trick saved the opening credits, but it was nothing compared to the massive change the show had to make during its very first week of shooting, which completely flipped the personalities of the two main characters. Coming in at number 18 is the Great Persona Swap. This massive backstage twist that completely flipped the script on the entire show. When the series was first put together and pitched to the network bosses at CBS, it looked totally different. The show was built around Andy Griffith as the big star, and he was supposed to play a loud, goofy, over-the-top country sheriff. This idea came directly from his famous stand-up comedy routine about football, where he played a confused country bumpkin. In this original plan, Don Knotts was actually supposed to be the straight man, Deputy Barney Fife was supposed to be a rational officer, and Andy was supposed to be the funny sheriff. But everything changed on the very first day of rehearsals when Andy decided he needed to trade personalities with Fawn Knotts. Swapping their roles completely saved the series. It turned Andy Taylor into the stable heart of Mayberry, while making Barney Fife a legendary comedy icon. Andy Griffith and Don Knotts got along beautifully and built their success on total teamwork. The same could not be said for Andy and the actress who played Aunt Bee, because their relationship behind the scenes was a completely different story. On the 17th spot, The Bitter Set Feud. To millions of viewers watching at home, Frances Bavier was the absolute definition of the perfect neighborhood grandmother. But the real story off camera was a total mismatch. Frances Bavier was actually a highly trained New York stage actress who studied at the prestigious Juilliard School, and because of her elite background, she looked down on the rural humor of the show. To make matters worse, Andy Griffith loved pulling practical jokes, which Bavier found unprofessional and exhausting. The tension between Andy and Frances turned sour, and it got so bad that the two actors barely spoke a word to each other when the cameras stopped rolling. When the show ended, Bavier moved to a small town called Siler City in North Carolina and cut off contact with almost the entire cast. However, in 1989, only a few weeks before she passed away, Frances Bavier reached out to Andy Griffith to apologize for being so difficult on set and for keeping her distance for all those years. All of this backstage drama was kept perfectly hidden from the public. Audiences were too busy humming along to a cheerful theme song that actually carried a massive secret of its own. Number 16. The Secret Lyrics of the Fishin' Hole. You definitely know the tune that plays at the start of every single episode of the show. It was one of the most famous themes in television history, written by two talented composers named Earl Hagen and Herbert Spencer. For decades, millions of fans figured that Andy Griffith, or maybe a professional studio whistle player, did the honors on the track. But the truth is that the composer himself, Earl Hagen, whistled the tune on a Hollywood stage during a quick recording session. To cash in on how popular the show was getting, Andy Griffith went into a recording studio and made an official vocal version. Eventually, the song was officially released to the public in 1961 on a Capitol Records album called Andy Griffith Shouts the Blues and Old-Timey Songs. But it never got much radio play. But no matter how many pleasant words were written about the carefree life for a father and son, the show itself kept a giant secret about the missing piece of the Taylor family. Number 15. The Mystery of Opie's Mother. Across all the 249 highly rated episodes, viewers never learned the identity, history, or face of Opie's birth mother. Her complete absence is the single biggest missing puzzle piece in the history of the show. On the 1960 pilot episode, Andy tells Aunt Bee that Opie was a speck of a boy when his mother passed away. And that's it. That short sentence alone is the only official confirmation that she ever existed. It seemed the studio producers made a deliberate business decision to keep it that way, choosing not to explain how she died because they worried a sad backstory would completely ruin the upbeat, happy mood of a neighborhood comedy. Leaving her out of the script served a practical purpose for the television studio. It cleared the way for Aunt Bee to become the absolute head of the household, which created a great dynamic between the three generations living under one roof. Having a loving, hard-working single dad raise a son by himself was incredibly rare on 1960s television networks. The show did a beautiful job hiding the missing mother behind a warm, sunny neighborhood, which is pretty funny when you realize that the entire town was actually constructed on an old Hollywood movie lot with a highly dramatic past. Number 14. The Haunted Backlot of Mayberry. You might know a lot of things from the show, but you just might not know that for years, the shows had tricked millions of people into believing the cast were living in the mountains of North Carolina. If you were part of those who believe that, then it'll surprise you to know that the entire outdoor landscape of Mayberry was located in sunny Southern California. The production team filmed everything on a famous old Hollywood studio property called the 40 Acres Backlot, located right in the middle of Culver City, California. Long before the Mayberry crew was ever formed, this exact piece of land was used for shooting some major movies. It was the ground where movie producers filmed the massive, fiery burning of the Atlanta scene for the 1939 classic film Gone with the Wind. Also, any observant eye would have spotted the iconic courthouse in the original Star Trek television series. To make a tiny collection of empty wooden buildings look like a real, sprawling southern town, directors relied on clever camera angles and tight lenses. They framed the shots perfectly to give the illusion of a bustling community. Number 13. The Danny Thomas Show Influence. Most people think this classic show was a completely fresh idea built from scratch. The real story is that the town was actually born as a spin-off from an already popular television sitcom. In February 1960, a special episode of The Danny Thomas Show, titled Danny Meets Andy Griffith, aired as a sneak peek test run for the network. It started when a big city entertainer played by Danny Thomas got pulled over for driving right through a stop sign in a sleepy little town. The man who caught him was Justice of the Peace Andy Taylor. This single crossover episode set up the whole blueprint for the classic show. It introduced Andy as a multitasking country lawman who served as the local sheriff, the town judge, and even the editor of the neighborhood newspaper. The studio bosses took a major gamble on the episode, using it to pitch a full season to big corporate sponsors and television executives. The prototype town looked completely different from the place fans fell in love with later on. The courthouse had a totally different physical layout, and Barney Fife did not even exist yet. This test run successfully launched a television powerhouse, though the amazing partnership at the center of the show would later face a shocking misunderstanding that completely parted ways for the legendary comedy duo. Number 12. Don Knotts' Exit. When the series first started, Andy Griffith promised everyone he would only keep the show running for 5 years, so the stories would never get old or boring. Don Knotts took his co-star at his word and figured his time in Mayberry was officially coming to an end. To protect his career, he went out during the 5th season and signed a big 5-year movie contract with Universal Pictures. Right after that paperwork was finalized, Andy Griffith changed his mind and decided he wanted to do a 6th season after all. It was a total legal trap. Don Knotts was already locked into his new movie deal and could not legally back out to stay on television. This forced departure completely changed the series because losing Barney Fife meant losing the primary comedy engine of the whole show. While the actors were dealing with the sad reality of this sudden split, the writers were busy making a completely different blunder because they could not even remember the deputy's actual name. Number 11. An Identity Crisis. Back in the early days of television production, studios did not have people tracking every tiny detail from week to week. Because of that, the writing team completely lost track of Barney Fife's official name, creating a strange identity puzzle for the character. In a very early episode from the 1st season, the script clearly states that the deputy's full name is Barney Oliver Fife. A few years later, the writers completely forgot about that choice. They wrote a scene where Andy and Barney look back at their old high school yearbook, and the screen shows his name as Barney Milton Fife. To make things even more confusing, characters throughout the series occasionally call him Barney P. Fife, and the show never bothers to explain what that letter stands for. Long before the internet or home video existed, sharp-eyed fans noticed these mistakes and turned them into legendary trivia. The creative team simply cared more about fast-paced jokes and great performances than keeping a strict rulebook on character details. The writers were definitely messy, with Barney's name on paper. But Andy Griffith was paying very close attention to everything happening on the physical set, where he loved to pull wild pranks on his fellow actors. Number 10. Andy was a ruthless pranker. On television, Andy was the patient voice of reason who never lost his temper. Off-camera, he ran the Hollywood studio lot like his own personal playground, earning a big reputation as a relentless practical joker who caught his fellow actors completely off guard. One of his absolute favorite games was targeting Don Knotts. Whenever Don tried to catch a quick nap between takes, Andy would wait until he was fast asleep, sneak up quietly, and slam heavy metal film canisters onto the hard floor right next to his head to scare him awake. He went even further during a prank on George Lindsay, who played Goober. After a weekend hunting trip, Andy brought real duck guts to the studio and hid them deep inside George's dressing room. The camera crew and production assistants always helped the star pull off these loud stunts, which often left visiting guest stars totally shocked. The loud backstage games kept everyone on their toes, but all of that studio laughter stopped completely when a real-life medical crisis threatened to take away one of Mayberry's most popular characters. Number 9. The Invisible Stool. During the third season, fans were hit with a sudden shock when Howard McNear was completely missing from the show. Backstage, the cast was dealing with a massive medical crisis. McNear had suffered a near-fatal stroke that left the left side of his body completely paralyzed. A year later, Andy Griffith personally reached out and begged his friend to come back, feeling that getting back to work would be the best possible therapy. To make it happen, the studio crew built a series of hidden props. They engineered specialized stools, leaning posts, and custom benches inside the barbershop. Directors used clever camera angles and tight framing to make sure McNear was always structurally supported while acting. This brilliant trick completely hid a severe physical disability from the viewing public, letting Floyd appear totally fine to the fans at home. The crew found a way to protect their friend, but no amount of help could save the cast when Aunt Bee lost her temper and got physical on the set. Number 8. Frances Bevier lived by a very strict, old-school moral code in her real life, matching the proper manners of her character, Aunt Bee. She had an absolute zero-tolerance rule for bad language, crude jokes, or any kind of lowbrow humor whenever she was on the studio lot. Everything boiled over during a stressful rehearsal when George Lindsay, who played Goober, accidentally let a loud curse word slip out. Bevier completely lost her temper, raised her heavy prop umbrella, and repeatedly whacked Lindsay right over the head with it. The noisy, joke-filled set went totally quiet as the cast stood there in absolute shock. This physical outburst created a permanent Cold War between Bevier and the younger actors that lasted for years. This fight showed that the actors had plenty of real-world tension, which makes sense when you realize the entire show was trying to live in a completely different time period. Number 7. The Time Machine. The show was filmed during the 1960s, a chaotic decade filled with the space race, the civil rights movement, and the Vietnam War. Yet Mayberry looked entirely unaffected by what was going on. This historical mismatch was a calculated plan. Andy Griffith gave a strict order to the writing staff to design the town with the slower, simpler atmosphere of 1930s Depression-era America. To achieve this, the studio enforced a total technology blackout. Scripts banned modern appliances, television sets, new gadgets, and contemporary slang. The wardrobe department joined the effort, selecting outdated fabrics, specific hats, and older clothing styles to subtly trick the viewer's mind. This smart illusion made the show a massive ratings success, offering a comforting escape for an anxious public. It successfully created a beautiful myth of American history that millions of viewers accepted as absolute truth. Keeping Mayberry frozen in the past worked beautifully on screen, until a major corporate sponsor from Detroit demanded that their modern products take center stage. Number 6. The car fleet. Even though the town was supposed to be a sleepy, low-budget community, the sheriff department always rode in style. This happened because of a major product placement contract with the Ford Motor Company. At the start of every single filming season, Ford shipped a brand-new, top-of-the-line Ford Galaxy Squad car straight to the studio lot. This annual trade-in created a funny glitch in the show's timeline. Nobody ever explained how a tiny, cash-strapped country town could afford a sparkling new police interceptor every 12 months. Once filming wrapped, the used squad cars were sent to a real-world dealership in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Workers there would paint over the police colors, remove the studio decals, and sell them directly to local fans as premium collector items. It was a brilliant marketing plan that turned a basic television prop into a huge win for Detroit auto sales. The squad cars updated with every passing year, but if you walked into Floyd's barbershop, you would catch a funny background mistake, proving that time stood completely still. Number 5. The barber oversight. If you look closely at the background during scenes inside Floyd's barbershop, you can spot a famous production oversight. The wall calendar hanging directly behind the barber chair stays permanently flipped to the month of February. Across multiple years of filming, the set dressers completely ignored this little prop, leaving the exact same days and dates exposed for dozens of episodes. Back in the day, this mistake was completely invisible on old tube televisions. It took modern high-definition remastering and digital streaming for fans to finally notice the blunder. Even though it was a total accident, the frozen calendar perfectly matched Andy Griffith's ultimate goal of creating a comforting town where time did not exist. It even sparked funny theories in the fan community, with some viewers joking that Mayberry was stuck in a permanent time loop. While the background calendar stayed frozen by mistake, the Real-World Television Academy froze out the main star on purpose, leading to a shocking reality show that completely ignored the leader of the series. Number 4. Andy Griffith never won an Emmy for the show. Andy Griffith wasn't only the anchor of the show, he was the main writer and the creative engine behind the whole production. Yet, he never won a single Emmy Award for playing Sheriff Andy Taylor. In fact, the Television Academy never even nominated him for the role during the entire 8-year run of the series. While Andy got the cold shoulder, his co-stars absolutely cleaned up at the award shows. Don Knotts dominated the comedy category, taking home 5 individual Emmy trophies for his legendary performance as Barney Fife. Even Frances Bavier won an Emmy for playing Aunt Bee, leaving the main star entirely out of the winner's circle. Andy never let jealousy ruin the fun. He supported his castmates completely, often reminding reporters that Barney was the real comedic spark that made the show work so well. Hollywood voters completely ignored his brilliant work behind the scenes as an uncredited script doctor and casting genius, but Andy won the ultimate prize by creating a timeless masterpiece. Number 3. Don Knotts' bizarre fan mail. Anyone who remembers the daily routines inside the Mayberry Sheriff Station knows the ultimate safety rule. Andy knew his deputy was far too clumsy and nervous to be trusted with a loaded gun, so he made a strict rule. Barney was never allowed to keep a bullet inside his pistol. This simple bit of comedy became a massive pop culture phenomenon, and fans across the country wanted to participate in the joke. During the height of the show's success, viewers from every single corner of the United States started buying real, live ammunition, packing it into envelopes, and mailing individual bullets directly to Don Knotts at the television studio. It got so bad that security workers had to set up a whole system to intercept the packages before it could cause any real accident on the lot. Don Knotts particularly found the whole situation really funny, and he was also surprised by how dedicated the fans were. He used to joke in interviews that the public had sent him enough ammunition to start his own private, highly unstable army. The joke even left a lasting mark on real-life law enforcement culture. Police departments all over the country started inviting Don Knotts to their stations to present him with official, honorary single bullets mounted on wooden plaques. The avalanche of strange fan mail proved that people truly felt like the citizens of Mayberry were real members of their own families. That feeling makes a lot of sense when you discover that one of the town's most memorable recurring characters was actually the main star's real-life brother hiding in plain sight. On the Cécine spot is the cowboy in the shadows. This quiet little fellow spent years wandering the streets of Mayberry, completely unnoticed by most viewers. Long before he grew up to become a famous Hollywood character actor, a tiny toddler made regular appearances on the show without ever saying a single word. If you look closely at those old episodes, you can spot this silent kid popping up in the background of some of the most memorable scenes. This mysterious little boy was actually Clint Howard, the real-life younger brother of the show's breakout child star, Ron Howard. His character was named Leon, and he had a very specific job on the show that became a hilarious running joke. This hidden family connection is now considered a goldmine of Hollywood trivia. It kind of was the launching pad for Clint Howard's massive 6-decade career in the entertainment industry. With a wonderful cast, clever family cameos, and incredible writing, the show built a massive empire of success. It became so popular that when it finally came to an end, the final episode did something so historic it completely shocked the entire television industry. Number 1. The historic number 1 finale. By the time 1968 rolled around, after 8 incredibly successful seasons and 249 episodes, the series was sitting right at the top of the entertainment industry. It was the absolute king of network television, and families all across America routinely gathered around their televisions every single week to see what was happening in Mayberry. But Andy Griffith was completely worn out from the brutal, non-stop schedule of producing a weekly sitcom. He also wanted to try new things. Because of this, he had to shut down production on the show for good. The television executives at CBS were absolutely terrified of losing their biggest moneymaker. They even sent him blank checks and total creative control over everything on the studio lot if he would sign up for a 9th season, but he refused. Rather than throwing away a highly profitable universe, the writers came up with a clever plan for the final episode. They engineered the finale to introduce a brand new spin-off series called Mayberry RFD, which passed the torch over to actor Ken Berry and kept the network's ratings machine running smoothly. By refusing to let the show grow stale or suffer from lazy late-season writing, Andy Griffith preserved the community in a state of permanent perfection for future generations of fans. This historic departure proved that the absolute best trick up the show's sleeve was knowing the exact right second to close the courthouse doors, leaving millions of viewers forever wanting more. Mayberry always felt like a real sun-drenched escape from the pressures of everyday life, yet its real-world history is packed with hidden tension, surprising arguments, and genius pieces of old-school studio trickery. Which of these classic secrets shocked you the most? Let us know all your thoughts down in the comments section. Do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell for more classic television exposés.